time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielson, Matt Kassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
Game day as the Edmonton Oilers look for their 15th win in a row. Wow. Can you believe we're saying that?
No.
After the start of the season, man, like, I thought there'd be a turnaround. I didn't think they'd take it run at like the all-time winning streak record in the league.
No.
Like, it's insane.
No.
I thought it would be like, win 3, lose 1, win 4, lose.
Win 5, like maybe string together 6 or 7 once.
And that's it.
And which is still really good, really good, but not like
To
this.
go completely bizarro world from the start of the season is crazy.
So, Cass, on the West End for a coffee meeting.
Yeah.
So tell me about these coffee meetings. Like, do you have to drink coffee at this meeting? Okay.
No, like I'll usually because if it's in the afternoon,
the
other person might have coffee. I'll usually just have like a herbal tea.
Okay, that's
or
nice.
something,
Yeah.
Because I don't need the caffeine, and then I won't sleep. If I've had my coffee already in the morning, depending on the time, same thing. I'll just do like a decaf.
Do you say, hey, do you want to do coffee? Should we just do coffee? Like, do you say do coffee, or do you do we want to have a meeting?
No, like want to get together.
Well, I know, like when my wife
wanna
goes
sit
out to
down
like me,
and-
she goes, "Oh, I'm gonna go do coffee with Sarah or
Yeah,
something."
I don't call it. I mean,
No, okay.
sit down and grab a coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gage, you do coffee meetings too in the financial business? Like,
No, it's I'm basically virtual.
also Zoom stuff.
I'm 2-dimensional most of the time.
Nobody can reach around and feel you. Yeah, I'm pretty fascinated about it. Like when I was in like the early meeting process, get all like our initial sponsors, I was just such a blackout because I was working so much. I don't remember if I was like, oh, let's go for a coffee.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I ever said that. I was like, let's just meet, and I'd pop in and be like, here's what we're doing. Please support us.
Go for meat?
You know what?
Meeting.
You know what the word that I like to use for it instead of being like a coffee meeting? Like, hey, let's just get together and connect.
Oh, that's a good one.
that's
I
a
like
good one.
that.
It's not. Yeah,
So do you pick locations or do the other people pick locations? It depends.
it really depends.
I'm very, I usually let other people pick
Yeah.
locations. Oh, I got one place I'd like to meet here on the West End. Someplace like, where do you want to meet? This one place has like one of my favorite sandwiches. They're not a sponsor, so I'm not going to give them extra love, but I'm always like, let's go there.
Yeah. I like to pick like a non-major if I can. Like if I'm picking, it's like if I can pick like a non-major chain.
Yeah.
Like if it's a
Support
coffee
local.
shop,
That's
like
nice.
a local shop, I try to do that. And generally the coffee is way better too. So
Yeah.
I pick my buddy's place because he gives me free reign.
there you go.
And
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, so that's kind of like big time. Like,
Well, have you been to First Round downtown?
yeah. I've been to
So
first
Mo
round.
lets me use the drafting room.
Oh, like the
So
okay, that makes
when
sense.
when I do meet people in town here, it's I take there, close the door, so little.
So everybody else is like, look at those
Who are
guys.
those
They're meeting
guys?
in a glass room.
Yeah.
They're a big deal.
That's a pretty big power play there, Gage.
Yeah, it's a power move.
Yeah. And with that being said, when you go home, you can't play your son's Nintendo Switch,
Oh no,
which came to our.
yeah,
That's a power move.
that is a
Yeah.
power move by my son. Yeah,
Not even together, or like you just won't let you play it straight up, like
Well,
if he's not around.
I didn't want to stay in his room, so can I move this downstairs? No, I want it up here. You're not using it. I might.
Oh,
Yeah,
just
so,
an I might on you.
Yeah. Well, you
God.
know what though? We did took him for early dinner yesterday, which was fun. So we went to a place. He got a steak sandwich, got a pizza,
Nice.
had a
Nice.
beer.
Had a beer with your son. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when did you stop being able to tell him to do stuff? I'm just curious because like my son, I know will do whatever I say for the rest of his life. Elizabeth's 6; she doesn't really listen anymore. So what? Like when did it happen for you? Like
I think it was age 6.
yeah, about the same time. Yeah, he's never got it back.
No,
Yeah, that sucks.
He's a strong individual.
We actually had someone give us a new idea the other day. We were talking with them about what they do with their kids, with some of the not listening. Because with my oldest right now, because she's 8, and it's like everything's a fight. Like you're fighting
With your oldest?
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
go brush your teeth. No, like
Why?
Why? Like that's why. It's like well, because you need to brush your teeth. You're going to be going to bed soon. I don't want to brush my teeth right now. Well, you need to go brush your teeth. Like we're getting ready for bed. It's that time, but I want to brush my teeth later. Well, you're going to like so. It's a classic move from a parent standpoint, but I hadn't thought of it. So I'm like, that's actually really good. So I told my daughter. I told her this last night. Actually, I was like, if you fight with me on this and complain. Like if I'm telling you to go to bed or like we're asking you to do something and asking, why, or can I do it later? That's fine. It's fine to ask questions, but like to complain and to argue when I've already justified my reasons for doing so, you're going to sit down at the table and I'm going to get you some line sheets of paper.
Oh, boy.
And you're going to write like
do lines like Bart Simpson on the chalkboard?
Like on the chalkboard. Yeah. I will not argue with my dad and complain, or I will not disrespect my mom and complain, and just like pages of it.
I remember doing lines in school. Yeah. Like the odd time, like
she kind of smiled at first, like she thought it was a little silly, and then she started to think about it, and then she was like, "Oh,
that would suck."
So that's
got to learn how to tape four pens together. My daughter doesn't watch this, but I know some of her teachers do. I had a good zinger yesterday with her because she was using a Q-tip to clean out her ear, and there was stuff on it. Probably doesn't want me saying that, but
that's what happens when you use a Q-tip.
And so she goes, "Dad, look!" And I looked at her and goes, "Well, maybe you'll listen to me now." So,
nice bird.
She gave me the sign.
Nice,
whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, Dad. But if any of Liliana's teachers are listening, just tell her to use a Q-tip if she's not listening.
And last night my wife wasn't home for bath time, so I was calling both of the kids pee-pee buttheads, and they thought it was the funniest thing ever. Yeah. So Tammy comes home and she goes, "What's going on?" I said, "All I'm doing is calling them this." They're like,
Yeah, it's the funniest thing.
This is so funny.
I actually had Edwin the other day. We were playing. They have these things called calico. I have only girls, so lots of dollhouses, that type of. So it's like calico critters. So they're like these little fuzzy toys, and they wanted me to play. So I was playing with them, and I had a little boy, and I always do like. I do want to, like, I have a couple characters. Like, people will always be a couple characters.
Okay, yeah.
One's called Chad, and he's like ultra, he's like an ultra.
He's a full-blown Chad?
He's a full-blown Chad.
Yeah.
And then the other one is Chaz. Like, so it's almost like Chad, but he's a little bit different. And for whatever reason, like, I made the joke once, and they just died, so I kept running with it. So it's turned into a running joke in the house, is like they pushed him down the stairs, like they didn't want him to come into their house, because he's just trashes everything. And they
Chad or Chaz?
Well, both. But Chaz in this instant, they had really the difference between the two is they have a different voice that I use. Like, that's the whole difference. But they pushed him, like, so he couldn't get in because he was going to go in and just like trash the, like they like, you know, with those things they have like tiny little forks and like little tables, and he just goes in and like destroys everything.
Oh, so Chad, don't.
Yeah, they pushed him out and he fell down the stairs, and I said, "Oh, I hurt my butt cheeks." And like when he fell down the stairs, and they just died, and so the whole thing, everything has turned into like, "Oh, you hurt my butt cheeks." Like,
oh my god!
And once you find something that makes your kids laugh, man, you just do it over. Like,
over.
I remember when my kids were littler. Like, I'm talking like 3 years ago now. Elizabeth was like 3 years old. One night we were having meatballs, and I went up to get some. And I grabbed one. I took it out. And I went to eat it here, but I kind of like closed my eyes and I hit my forehead with it. So there's like meatball sauce on it. And then I went to do it again. I got my cheek, and they're just like, ah! So now every time, it's been 3 years. Every time with meatballs, Marcia's like, "Hey, Daddy, do the thing." I'm just like, "Yeah, okay, man." Like, oh yeah, they're hilarious. Okay, all right, we got lots to get to today. Obvious. I mean, there's a lot going on, so it's great that both you guys are in studio today. We can really sort of dive into a lot of these stories from around the National Hockey League. Well, let's start with the Edmonton Oilers. They're trying to make it 15 in a row tonight, and it looks like let's start between the pipes. Looks like it's going to be Pickard here, Gager. Your thoughts on getting a game in for him right now?
Yeah, I mean, we went over. I don't like it, but I understand.
As a backup goalie, how can you not like?
You got to play.
I was never in a position to win the 15th game in a row.
You got it. You have to play him. You have to play him. Like, you're gonna, if you don't, and because you were for sure starting Stuart Skinner against the Nashville Predators. And so it's like, what, you're going to have Pickard in a situation where he hasn't started a game in like a month almost?
Yeah.
It's a long time if you're going to need this guy.
And you
right?
have to, you want to build trust in that goaltender. And Pickard has fully deserved the trust so far because he's been really good when he's played. So I just, you don't have Bedard. Chicago is not very good. You need to start him.
That's the only reason I can see this. I'm okay with it because of what happened last night with the Blackhawks. They basically have an American Hockey League team, and the Oilers really should be able to beat them with one hand tied behind their back.
Pickard's last 5 starts, he's 4-1. He's got a 9.06 and a 2.60. So I mean, not amazing, but those are backup. Those are solid numbers.
Those are solid. Those are good enough numbers to win against the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, to me, if you didn't play him tonight, you're just saying, like, dude, we don't.
And it's a back-to-back, as you mentioned, back-to-back
for Chicago.
Back-to-back for Chicago. That's, so.
Cass, a lot of people would view this as classic trap. But the fact that they almost got trapped by Chicago in Chicago and got held to like 15 shots or whatever it was, does that lead into them putting the foot on the gas tonight and rolling?
I hope so. And I even think, like, the first 2 periods against Columbus, contribute to that a little bit, because the first 2 periods of Columbus was like, they weren't very good. Like, Columbus was probably a better team, better chances. You have Stuart Skinner that makes a huge save on Gaudreau, which if that puck goes in, it could have been a different story. But, they're kind of hanging around. And then the third period, they finally put their foot on the gas, and then Columbus just couldn't play with them. And so, to me, I'm hopeful that they're almost losing to Chicago and having to get bailed out by your goaltender, and really almost in a lot of ways losing to Columbus and finding a way to win, keep the streak going. I'm really hoping that just helps from a mental state that they're in heading into this one.
Yeah, and I looked to the game against the Kraken and the Leafs, and there was an emotional high. Those were big Pacific Division rivals to win those games against. You saw the next game, like, there was a little bit of a letdown. I think it's only natural to see that.
Yep.
And like you said, I think that they have that memory of almost losing to the Blackhawks before. They're not. I would be shocked if the Edmonton Oilers don't have a dominating first 10 minutes of this game because of what almost happened before, how the last 2 periods of the last game went. I just think there's no way that they I just don't think they're laying an egg tonight.
Yeah, and really, if they have a dominant first 10 minutes,
it's probably over.
That's sure, lights out.
Yeah.
You're not letting one slip away against that group of guys in the Chicago Blackhawks.
I'd be
pretty surprised if that ended up happening.
Yeah.
Now, that game against Columbus, you talked about it, Skinner, a couple saves there. Keep it in. They did switch up the lines, and it looks like they're going to kind of stick with that. I thought they might just go back to kind of what's been working so well during the winning streak, but Knoblauch might be seeing some things that he didn't like. So this morning at the morning skate, it was McDavid with Draisaitl and Hyman, Nuge between Fogle and Kane, McLeod with Brown and Holloway, and then Ryan with Gagne and Matthias Janmark, of course, Corey Perry. Likely or possibly, I guess I'll say for now, on Saturday against Nashville. Cass, your thoughts to stick with what worked in the third period against the Blue Jackets?
Yeah, well, I really don't mind it in this situation. Now, part of me is like, you should go back to what has been working because it has worked so well. On the flip side to it, I also don't mind getting a look at some of the different line combinations when you look at the future and you look at Perry coming in to say, okay, this is what we can roll to, and these guys know how to play together, they're comfortable together, and it works. So, like, what better game to? I don't want to say it's not like it's experimental because you've seen some success for it, or you saw in the third period that it could work. But hey, give it a little bit of a different look, give guys a different feel, and there's nothing saying that if you were to have a slow start, you couldn't go back to the ones from before. And it doesn't feel, and maybe that's just because they're winning, it doesn't feel, and it didn't, because we talked about that. Tommy asked some good questions about that in the post-game show after the Columbus game. It didn't feel like a panic move by Knoblauch to go to a different group, or to mix things around. Like, it wasn't like we played one bad period at the start of the season, we're going to blow everything up. It was like, no, things maybe aren't working quite the way we want to, so let's try moving this around a little bit. And I think even with the addition of Perry, you're kind of looking forward to that a little bit, to say, okay, Perry's going to be able to slide into this as well, and it just gives us so many more options for how we want things to look. And I will say, some teams, if they have really good defense, you don't necessarily want to load up McDavid and Draisaitl. Or if they have a really good line or two really good lines, you want to be able to spread things out a little bit. Against the Chicago, rolling with that group, realistically, if McDavid and Draisaitl are going, there is no way that they shouldn't put up a ton of points against that Chicago group. So I totally get going with that lineup.
All right, so Cass saying right now, one of McDavid or Draisaitl will take a run at Sam Gagne's 8 points.
Call it, yeah. Call Patty.
If for some reason it actually happens, it'd be great when it'd be like, Cass called it yesterday. That was amazing. That was good. Gager, what do you think of this group?
Yeah, no, I like the fact that it took 2 periods to make the changes. It allowed the players to try to figure things out on their own, a little bit more patience. I mean, against the Blackhawks tonight, I don't mind putting Connor and Leon together for this. We saw that with Woodcroft. Certain opponents, he'd put them together because just the matchups were too good. You look at the rest of the lineup and how they're playing, that's hard for the Blackhawks to match in the best of cases, let alone being so dismantled with their injuries that they have. I think it's you said experiment, but whatever. It's a little bit of a science experiment for Knoblauch to see what else he has, because I mean, his lines don't change they haven't changed as often as they have in the past. But I mean, I watched that Leafs game last night. Jeez, that was just a ninja blender. That
A lot of blender.
oh my gosh, that would have been very difficult as a player, I think.
What do we think of Nuge, Fogle, Kane, Cass? What could that line be in the playoffs if it's something they need to go to?
Well, I think you have a very typically defensive responsible player in Ryan Nugent-Hopkins that can play the middle, and then you have two guys that dig pucks out. I mean, that to me is a line that you want Fogle and Kane around the net all the time, just causing havoc. It's a pretty fast line, like some good speed on there. There's some physicality. So I don't mind it from a line that can maybe from a forechecking standpoint turn some pucks over. It's not necessarily like a line that's going to generate a lot off the rush. Mm-hmm. That's like a zone time line, like where it's like grind it out, get the puck to the net, get bodies to the net, spend a lot of time in the offensive zone, try to tire the defense out, wear them down with some physicality. Because, McDavid and Draisaitl, that's a rush scoring line. Can they generate offensively when they have possession? Of course they can. But it's more of a line that's driven to, McDavid and Draisaitl attacking with all kinds of speed, attacking in transition and generating off the rush. So it's a very different line in terms of feel from that first line. And so if you're looking forward to the playoffs to say, this is a line that can beat you in a very different way than our top line, if this is the group we're rolling out and these are the lines we're rolling out. So again, I don't mind that line at all. I like the combination. Now, whether it was Ryan Nugent-Hopkins or whether it was Ryan McLeod playing in the middle, I like having Fogle and Kane together just because I think they're kind of complementary in that get the puck to the net, play a little bit of a grittier game, turn pucks over on the forecheck type of group.
We said earlier, if they're looking at this, trying to maybe just get a little bit of a peek of where Perry could fit in if he's in. So let's play this game. McDavid, Hyman, Draisaitl, Nuge, Fogle, Kane. That's going to be there. Bottom six, McLeod with Brown and Holloway, Ryan with Gagne and Janmark. And it seemed like this morning we were kind of circle talking, but you just always kind of came back to it seems like Sam Gagne is just the guy who comes out. But as somebody said, their points per his points per 60 is better than all of the bottom six. He's got 10 points in 20 games. Gazdic said this morning, he goes, he just thinks they win. They play better when Sam Gagne's in the lineup. But Gage, do you see a way that it isn't Sam Gagne who comes out for Corey Perry?
Not really. I mean, the only other person we came up with was Janmark, but
he's potentially Holloway.
It could be. Yeah. I mean, but Holloway's last 4 games he's
played well.
Played really well.
He's starting to look like he belongs.
Yeah. Right? So there's inevitably going to be a little bit of a drop off at some point, and it depends on his response after a game maybe that he doesn't have as much success, and how he rectifies things. But it's upsetting because, like you said, he contributes. I mean, I felt bad for him with that giveaway last game, right?
Yeah, that was tough.
But it
sucks,
didn't cost him ice time.
No, I know, but it was he's coming out now.
Yeah, has to be him. Yeah. One mistake,
and he's out. But
the life of a bubble player. That was his.
Hey, if there's anyone that can be able to handle that and be able to push through it, it's him.
It's
right.
Him, yeah.
So you want to look at that too.
And let's not discount the fact that from when they play better. And I think Sam Gagne from the team plays better when he's in the lineup. And that comment you made, Dusty, is you get a similar veteran experience with Perry, like a guy that's just been around, seen a lot, generally, really good in the room. Teammates love him, they like him, they're out there working, and Perry brings a similar feel to that.
Yeah, so feels that need too,
which is where they might look at it. But I think the points per 60 is such an interesting thought because it's like Gagne has produced.
And he produces at 5-on-5 in the bottom six.
In the bottom six, which is what you want. Now, Perry can do the same thing, I think. But it at the end of the day, gentlemen, it gives you options. Whether it was Brown, because that's – and I know he penalty kills, but he's an option too. So you're looking at Brown, Janmark, or Holloway, or the kind of the three. You have options.
Yeah, Janmark and Brown have combined for 1 goal so far this year playing the Boston, which is just wild to me. That
they both should have probably about 10 combined.
Well, Brown almost
some
scored
of the chances.
last game.
Yeah. Brown has almost scored so many times this year. I said this morning on our show for Tales of the North, tonight's the night. Connor Brown puts one in the back of the net. So we'll see how that plays out. One more in the Oilers and Hawks here, and then we got a bunch of other stories around the hockey world that we can certainly dive into. This sounds, I feel dirty asking it because they won 14 in a row. But Gager, any concerns about the power play just looking like meh right now?
No. I don't.
didn't think so.
Because and it's not that it's man, but I always look to the shifts afterwards. It's given the Oilers momentum, right? If it's not a killer anymore. I think when last year, if a team killed that power play, it was such a lift because they didn't get scored on. They started feeling good about themselves. So, and it was to me, it was a crutch last year. They depended on it too much.
Well, their 5-on-5 play wasn't as good.
Oh no,
it
wasn't even close to this. So no, I think it's fine where it is.
And with the way that their penalty kills playing right now, that's giving them momentum after penalty kills too, right?
Which is huge. And if we look to the start of this season and significant chunks of last season, their PK crushed them at times. Right, where their power play would build them up, but their PK would crush them. Like they were so leaky, and if we look at through this streak, like their penalty kill has been absolutely phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it has jumped up the standings.
If you took Janmark or Brown out, Cass, how much does moving one player out of a rotation of like 6 forwards? I'm not gonna say it would be the downfall of the penalty kill, but could it disrupt things?
It could disrupt. Yeah. Oh yeah. Which is where you're kind of like, okay, well, and that's where you end up landing on Gagne as the most likely to be taken out.
He's not in that spot, right? So.
Right, because he doesn't play in the penalty kill, because you don't want to disrupt it because it has been so good. So yeah, it's again at the end of the day you have options because taking one guy out should it completely change it? Well, no, but could it?
Maybe a little bit. Just when it's been clicking so well. I mean, there's really.
It's more important for the penalty kill than the power play at this point, anyway, right?
Yeah, with how they've been playing 5.
Yeah, with how they've been doing. Yeah, no, that makes a good point. All right, let's get to some of the other stories here around the National Hockey League. Actually, we had Gazdic on this morning. We have him on every Thursday, and.
Nice suit last night.
I
didn't yesterday. I usually send him a text about his suits. I'm like,
sharp dressed man. He was wearing a hoodie today, which I respect a lot on our show, which is good. But he brought up that I don't know how it came about because I didn't bring up your name, Cass, but he brought you up. He was talking about, we're talking about expansion. And he was talking about going to Houston. And he goes, man, I used to fight Mike Kassian all the time. Said he probably fought you more than anybody else in his career. He said most of them were down the middle. He felt like he might have got the better of you a couple times. But tell me about
rematch
fighting Gas. Because he's a big dude. He's not as burly as you. Like
he was strong though.
Was he strong?
The thing with him was his arms were really like he was long. And
you guys fight like a dozen times between these?
A lot of times. And I would say there was a lot. Some you probably maybe one of us edged. Someone you probably like let's call it a Dallas or a Texas fan would have said, and a Houston fan would have said, oh no, like I edge. Like there were typically there were no big blowouts with him, and with him he was rangy, and so I found timing was a big thing with fighting him because he threw pretty hard, but he would throw from far away, and so it was like okay if you can try to time for me like with my left, like some guys. Depending on their size, where you're trying to grab, where it's like, okay, most guys I usually would go, try to have them by the collar jersey. You can throw your hand up in the face. And that was usually when they're smaller than you and they have less reach. If they're as big or bigger than you, which wasn't as often for me, well, then you try to bring things in a little tighter.
Okay.
But with him, I found I had more success when I was able to, get here and really anytime, just kind of try to time it and not just throw, but sit and wait a little bit. And when he would go to throw, then try to get the left up in his face to disrupt so he couldn't hit and try to slide a little bit. But I mean, he was one of those guys, and really at that level, everyone in some way is one of these guys where it's just like, you just don't want to get caught clean because if he catches you clean, it's going to really hurt. But yeah, no, he was a big man. The first time we fought, I would have been, and I had no idea who he was at this point. But I had a guy on my team that played junior with him, who was like, "Hey, he's like, just so you know, like he can throw. He's really really tough." Would have been in Traverse City at the prospects camp when he was with Dallas, and I was still there with that's when it started. And then in the minors we slugged it out many times.
It's so funny because on the show this morning, he said, he goes, the first time I played against Cass, a bunch of guys were like, you don't want to go near him. He was like the heavy in the dub when he was there. And Gazdic was like, and in my mind operates, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fighting this guy.
That's how most of us are a little bit crazy like that. Where it's like, this is going to happen.
You don't want to fight that guy. He'll kick your ass. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fight him.
And it was in that game, the first shift, I remember we were in the offensive zone. I don't remember exactly how the fight went. I think it was actually fairly even. And I actually remember being a little bit surprised. Like, oh no, he he held his own pretty well.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I don't think I lost a fight in like 3 years. So
What a run.
Yeah, pretty good run. Yeah, but no, tough guy, big boy.
All right, so I'm glad we got some. That's mutual respect there.
Oh, yeah.
He
Oh,
said I
ton.
bumped into you like Hockey Helps the Homeless.
Yeah,
Really?
next time, I don't know if he's coming into town for those again. I hope so. I'll try to take him out for
If I
some
raised
food.
$1,000, will you fight him at Hockey Helps the Homeless?
No.
Ah, damn, that'd be fun to see.
Well, yeah, actually, yes. Yes.
Just a little love taps. Like.
No, I'll tell you I'm going to, and then you raise the money, and
And then you're
we'll
like,
have
what
it.
can? It's a charity event.
Yeah, but
There was
yeah,
almost
they
a
said
fight
no.
last year between the heavyweights. Did you see that?
I didn't see it. I heard
At
about
Hockey
it.
Helps the Homeless?
Yeah, George and Steve McIntyre almost went at it.
Oh, my God.
That would have been beautiful.
That would have been
You could have sold
amazing.
tickets.
Well, that would have been, because that's at Terwilliger, right?
Yeah.
That's one where somebody's running down the hall and they're like, George is fighting Big Mac. And
like-
then everybody's like running down. We're like hopping off the ice. and
I'd be
running down
pulling
too.
off my skates, just sprinting out. Not
like
even
when-
pulling off the skates, just running on the cement, just being like, I gotta see this.
George was going to try to kill one of our guys. We played him
George
a couple
tries
years
to
ago,
kill
too.
someone every
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
George,
he really does.
I feel like George at those things gets like because he still wants to win. Like he cares.
Yeah,
like he
yeah.
wants to win every game they play. Which I mean, just he's a competitor by nature, and I feel like George gets mad every year at these things. At least in one game, like he gets worked up about
I thought he was
something.
going to kill us 2 years ago. And it was like
Yeah.
a tight game. He dropped an elbow on somebody. I was like,
Yeah.
my God, man.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
He wants to win.
Can you imagine, though, at a charity event, George LaRocque and Steve McIntyre dropping the
my
gloves and
goodness.
going?
And really,
That would
like,
be
not
talked
like,
about for 100 years.
not just
Oh
like
my
kind of
gosh.
playing around, but like
No,
legitimately.
really.
Oh,
Imagine that clip going viral. Somebody
that's-
sitting
and
in the
that's like an
stands being like,
all-time-
George LaRocque just fought Steve
like
McIntyre.
I hope people can appreciate like that's like two guys that are just
They're
like
huge.
they are
All-time big
scary,
boys,
man,
like,
all-time
yeah.
big boys. You know, Steve McIntyre.
Did you fight McIntyre?
We never. No.
Okay, no.
We never did. Like him and George are like him, George, and McGrattan are the only three that I didn't end
Really?
up fighting. Yeah, those were the only three that I
And
didn't. end up
McGrattan
fighting.
looked like a killer,
Gratz
too.
too, but like George is still. I mean, lefty, and he's George. Like he's an absolute killer. But Steve McIntyre still. Like he's still he's farmer strong. Like he's
Yeah, no. If you
I don't
shake-
even want to shake his hand.
Well,
Yeah,
shake
yeah.
Shook his
George's
hand a couple
hand,
times, like-
and then
George's
shake.
hand, too. They're both
But
like.
when you
but
shake
Steve's hand is
Steve's
like-
hand,
He'll still try to break.
like I
your
got big
hand.
hands, and it's like,
Yeah.
He came into 1260 a long time ago. I think he was voicing a commercial or something, and he came up and I don't have very big hands for a tall guy, and I mean, it was like the size of my. It's like I hosted an MMA event one time, and Shane Carwin was there, and I was when Shane Carwin was like in his prime, and I got a picture with his hand by my head, and I'm like, oh my God, like Mac's hand is
Yeah, massive.
freaking huge,
Big old
man.
meat hooks.
Like, yeah.
Yep.
But he was a super nice guy.
Oh,
too.
he's
Like,
the best.
yeah.
Both those. I mean,
Yeah.
George too. Like again, George gets worked up when he's like in competition mode, but just awesome guys.
yeah. His teammates love it when he does that too, because then they feel like they're part of George winning.
Yeah, they're like,
It's-
man, I got-
they get all fired up. It's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, no, it's it's pretty good. You can text us anytime, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. All right, let's continue to work our way through it. Let's go to Los Angeles Kings next. Drew Doughty came out last night, did not have a lot of good things to say. Todd McClellan was not happy with that team. They've basically been bizarro Oilers this year. Great to start the year. Literally can't get out of their own way right now. Players only, or closed door at least, for a little bit after the game last night. I don't even really want to dive into the Kings, but I want to know closed door meetings during your career. Did you have a few, and does anything does it help? Does it legitimately help, or is it just like one of those things you're like, man, we've been sucking lately. We better have a players only. Like it's probably hit and miss. Maybe
I think they're more for the airing of grievances than anything.
It's like Festivus.
like, hey,
Yeah.
you get your shit together.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. They're more for that, where it's just like an environment like that. And there's a part of it too where you're trying to show coaches and management. I'd say not so much for the fans, but like that you're taking this seriously, and that your leadership group is trying to take it seriously. I've had some that were, I would say, more successful. I've had some where the GM decided it was a good idea to come into the middle of it and yell at everybody, and then I didn't even get played, and I got yelled at in the hallway. Me and Mark Mathot, Meth who was hurt, and me who was. So we were in the meeting, and then after the meeting, we walk out. I wasn't dressed. It was in New Jersey, and then the assistant GM came up to both of us and like yelled at us, and I was just like, I didn't even play. I've averaged like 3 minutes of ice time the last 5 games per game
Why
that
are you
I've played.
coming at
Like,
me, man?
why? And Matthew's like, I'm hurt. What do you want me to do? Like, and you just kind of smile there and, or not smile there. You stand there, I guess, and just be like, But yeah, that was an interesting. Oh well, I'm not going to get into those people with it that held that meeting, but or that came into that was. Yeah, but I think sometimes they can be effective again because you can arrow if there's like a lot of tension in the room and guys frustrated with one another. Again, it provides an opportunity where it's like you can try to hash through some of that and talk about it. Where in another instance you might not feel the ability as a player that you have the freedom to do that or to call somebody out. So yeah,
Oilers broke them. Go back to that game.
That's what we're going back to, eh?
Yeah, I'm going. Like they were rolling, and that was the game. Like
that was
a Skinner game, right?
We circled
Skinner,
that game. That was on both teams' calendars, and I think
3-2.
The Kings were.
Because they played pretty well that game.
They did.
Yeah,
they did, and they were rolling at the time, and they're all the talk and Doughty saying they've been thinking about them all summer, and that was their moment to crush because the Oilers, they were doing well. They came off that Eastern swing and had won. I think it was the start of the streak too. So it was 2 games they won. They lost on the island, right, and then won the next 2.
Jersey,
and then they went to
New York back to back. Was the
back to back, and then
that was the New York trip before Christmas.
It started the Oilers on this big, and that was their big measuring stick, I think. And one team went one way, one team went the other. I firmly believe that really hurt the Kings.
I'm calling it right now. This is my hot take, and I said it before. But I think McClellan gets fired and Woodcroft gets hired.
Wouldn't that
Hot
be
take.
an all-time twist?
Yeah.
Were you anti-Kings or pro-Kings? Weren't the Kings the team?
I was pro-Kings.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
pro.
yeah.
Are you still pro-Kings?
I still think they have the personnel where they can turn it around. From when I look at the team, like just playing really hard, playing really defensive, I still think they're a really good team. Yep.
But if I remember that game correctly, the first period, the Kings were dominant. And then they went back into that shell, and the Oilers didn't play that try to beat them.
Yeah.
They just were patient. And I think it frustrated the Kings that they weren't the same Oilers team.
When the King plays well, they're a team that frustrates your patience, right? Like they're just super aggressive on the forecheck.
Yeah.
They give you fits coming out of your own zone. You don't get a lot off the rush against them, and they just kind of they try to grind you down until you give them an opportunity. That's when they're at their best. That's the type of team. But with that game with Edmonton, and I know LA had some dominant times in it, but Edmonton started to show a little bit of that patience that we're seeing now. And I think teams, when they beat them, that's generally how they have to play. Is like, well, don't force it, because if you force it against that team, that's when they beat you. But if you can just make those small right plays and not force pucks through the middle of the ice, and just kind of stick with it, then you have an opportunity to beat them. And LA just hasn't had an answer to teams that have played that way.
It is 2 guys and a goalie. Dusty, Gage, and Cass with you here in studios at Edmonton Sports Talk. Lots of things to get to around the hockey world. Let's go to the Hockey Canada situation. 5 players from 2018 have been called in by the London police, where they will be charged with sexual assault. And then we'll see where it goes from there. I mean, this has been lurking around for quite some time now. The London police originally investigated in 2019, and nothing came of it. It's been reopened, and these guys are going to come back. And, it's tough for us to dive into the individual players and obviously the assault that will have to play out in the courts. Obviously a horrible look for Hockey Canada, considering it's now 2024, and something that happened in 2018 is finally getting addressed when there were some people around the organization who obviously knew about this. But I think I get intrigued by the conversation of not just like hockey culture, but like elite sports culture, and guys just not realizing that they were doing something wrong, and how does it get to that point for these kids nowadays?
I don't know, because it's like Hockey Canada does this, and I know Hockey Canada does this. Junior teams do this. Pro teams do this. It's like you have like security meetings. You have meetings with people that will sit down.
So they have these meetings and say, don't do this.
Every
don't do
year
this.
saying like, don't do this stuff.
Yeah.
Don't do this stuff. Be very, very smart. Be very, very careful. You are someone that's a public figure, and you have well, maybe let me preface this by saying I'm not saying that this is what happened in this situation, because again, there have been charges laid. We'll have to see how it plays out in court, but there are people that will try to take advantage of you and there are people that want to see a downfall in a lot of ways, and social media and modern media, not just social media, but just media in general, is like, no, everything, your whole lives are public. You have to be overly cautious. Even in consensual relationships, you have to be overly cautious, as you should be. Right, like you should, it just as a human, and for because they're kids at that, like they are still kids at that time. Now they're kids that have been told and should know better as young men that you can't. I'm gonna get fired up about this, but it's just like don't be an idiot, and they've been told this via programming over
to try to look out for them
and over again, to try to look out for them, because it's like, no, you can't. You can't, and you shouldn't be involved in anything like this that puts you at risk, that puts potentially another person at risk,
creating victims along the way,
like putting them at risk from a victim standpoint. Like it's just you can't be an idiot. You cannot be an idiot. And you have to be so careful, and again, because the potential of not just the legal stuff for yourself, but like you just said, of causing someone else harm with anything sexual, it's very, very real. It's very, very real, and we don't. And I would say thankfully, we don't live in the same times as we did in the 80s and 90s and maybe even in the early 2000s, where stuff was more swept under the rug, or that happened where there were victims and that there hasn't ever been recourse for them or anything dealt with. But I don't know. Sorry, it works me up a little bit, guys, because it's just like they have been told for years and years not to, just don't.
Well, and I think that's like, that comes like, so they have been told, so they know, and they just don't listen. Like they just don't care.
Well,
think I think some of these guys in this situation, they just think they're beyond that and can kind of do whatever they want.
Well, I don't know.
That's not how it is for everybody.
I don't know if it's that attitude of we can just do whatever we want, but just being like, oh yeah, this is fine.
So they're just stupid then? I mean, that's what you said. Don't be an idiot.
I don't have another answer for it, because I don't think you're going into it knowing that, like, oh, this is, again, we have to see how legal plays out, but just in any situation, like, oh, this could be sexual assault, or I have to think this through. It's like, no, they're thinking, no, this isn't sexual assault, because if it was like, oh no, this absolutely is sexual assault, well, most of them would not do
so
that,
so
right?
Stupid. Yeah,
they're thinking, no, this is fine, right? This is okay, this is cool, this is good, and so it's just like, it's stupid. Yeah. You didn't listen to people that told you. You didn't listen to the warnings, and you didn't think with the right brain. You thought with the other brain. Yeah. And it's
Gager, where do you come out on all this discussion, Link?
Don't do anything that if it was written in the paper, what you did would be looked at poorly the next day.
Like that's just one thing that, like, an easy test for yourself.
That's a huge barometer to it. And I can't remember, there was the who was the baseball player not too long ago that just went through a whole bunch of stuff.
High-end talent.
What was his name? I can't remember who it was, but I just remember reading, like, he came out after, and he had a comment after the legalities of everything cleared up, and basically said, and I'm not going to get involved with anybody unless it's in like a long-term committed consensual relationship. And to me, I'm just like, yeah, that's smart. Mm-hmm. Right. And we know that there still are things in those in relationships that can happen, or that do happen, that are very real and fall into the category, whether it be of sexual assault or whatever. Like, the bad stuff can still happen and people still do bad things. But it's just like, no, that to me, I'm just like, well, you protect yourself, right, in a lot of ways, and you protect the other person in a lot of ways. And even from get more into just my own, from a morality and an ethics standpoint, I'm like, you take so many problems off a table from it, even if it was something that was, let's say, healthy and consensual, and there was no assault involved, and it was, never had fun. It's like, well, from a the rest of your life standpoint, like, from we had an unplanned pregnancy standpoint, and now we're having to make decisions, like, from whatever it is, you just put yourself in so many more difficult situations that can really alter the rest of your life. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to get into, again, my own views on stuff and personal faith, but I'm like, I clearly see, to me, I'm like, there's a way to do things where you just don't put yourself, and you just give yourself the highest chance of not running into any issues. And to me, it's just like, no, this was just it was stupidity and foolishness, and just and we are all as people and everyone listening, we are all one mistake, one choice from being in that same sort of situation. But it's like you I don't know. It frustrates me because it's like you have now these, you have a victim on one side who it's like their life has been altered forever. Yep. And then you have perpetrators on the other side who I would say generally for most of them, it's not like they're horrible, evil, awful, bad. Now maybe they are. I don't know them personally.
You don't know,
terrible, evil, awful people, but they have now changed the course potentially of the rest of their life in a very negative manner because they just did something really, really dumb and again potentially illegal. And potentially with the victim again on the other side, and we'll have to see how everything plays out. Yeah. But it's just
even their families
and families too.
Yeah,
right. Like everything's changed.
Everything has changed, and it's just like just don't be an idiot. Like you said, Gage, like don't be an idiot. If we, and even as a society, if we all, and this doesn't apply just to hockey players or athletes or professional athletes, it's for everybody. It's like if you lived in a way where someone was always watching you and what you were gonna do was written down.
But yeah, was gonna be judged.
Was gonna be judged. Now again, my own personal convictions is I think it will be in one way or the other, and there's always be ultimate justice on the other end of stuff. But it's like if you live like that and you try to live like that, can you imagine just the lesser amount of harm that would come to people and just the I will say higher quality of life for the people that are living their life that way? So yeah, it gets me fired up. I'll stop there, guys.
It'd be interesting to see where this goes for Hockey Canada. I mean, Hockey Canada is under fire in so many different places right now.
Yeah, you got leagues leaving.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
We're going to get into
we're getting into this. Yeah.
I wonder, does that play into account? Like Hockey Canada is being a little bit high and mighty with everyone and being the big guy. And people, it was interesting just reading some of the BCJHL saying they felt like their hands were tied with trying to make their league better, and Hockey Canada saying no, you can't, and finally said, well, fine, we're moving away, and now you see other teams going, yeah, we want to have a great league, something that's going to make our players better. So this is another kind of blemish with Hockey Canada.
Well, let's transition into this. The BCHL went off on their own last season. Now they've gone in and just ripped the heart out of the Alberta Junior Hockey League.
And that is the heart. The heart of the league.
I worked for 2 years in Fort Mac. I love the Alberta Junior Hockey League. It helped me get started. I've always had a soft spot for the league. But from a business perspective, like if this was a television show, what a move by the PCHL. They're not coming in. They're not coming in and picking around the edges of the Alberta Junior Hockey League.
That's the heart of it.
They're going full Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber when he grabs the heart and yanks it out and puts it in a bag and takes 5 teams back to the BCHL. This is a major, I would think, moment for Junior A hockey in this country and Hockey Canada in general, losing 5 more teams and watching them merge like this.
Well, even with this is going on, competing a little bit more with the Western League, I think, to an extent. This is depending on what their import rules are and what they can do. It's, from a fan perspective, I kind of like it. I'm interested.
I'm super interested.
I want to see what this will entail. I have people in hockey in BC. One of my good friends was talking about it, and they want to build a super league here. They want to raise the competition. I was talking to Sean Brown too about it because his son actually plays in the Alberta Junior Hockey League. He goes, well, it's a question. Do I want to go?
Who's
to
he
BC?
Play for? One of the 5 teams.
Yeah, is it Okotoks? I think he's in
one of the 5 teams.
Yeah, so he doesn't know does he want to go to BC to play. There's a lot of things that have to be ironed out, obviously. But I think their heart is in the right place. Their vision of the league is making something that is better, creates better competition, higher caliber of player, without being tied by rules that Hockey Canada has implemented on.
Is this a play against the USHL, Cass, do you think?
I think maybe a little bit.
Because I think forever it was always like Western Hockey League, then all the BCHL, AJHL, all those teams there. And then the USHL came onto the scene 15, 16 years ago and kind of has elevated itself as a developmental league above these
Yeah.
leagues. And I feel like this is the BCHL's play to get on the same playing level with the USHL, and then they would kind of be elevated in that view, and then the AJHL and the SJ and stuff kind of are going to drop in beneath both. Like,
you have seen the quality of the developmental programs in the U.S. continue to rise. And you have seen, I would say, your overall number of because a lot of not everyone, but a lot of players that play in like the AJHL or the BCJ, like the junior hockey, non-Western League, non-CHL, is like, no, they're going for a scholarship to the States to play at a U.S. school, but you've seen those numbers drop because of the quality of the U.S. programs. And so part of it, I think, is the play to say, you know what, if we have a better league and if we have better players, and if we have better development, well, that's going to help us with our numbers and getting guys down into U.S. school and just with overall development and quality. And, if you think about, okay, we wanting to pull out, people that work for the U.S. schools in NCAA programs, well, now having a better league with better players, higher quality of competition, you're going to have more of them. They're spending less times at some of the rinks that they don't want to go to.
No limits on borders in the provinces.
No limits on borders in the provinces where you're just, it's as you say, Gage, it's going to be super interesting.
What is the compensation too for players who are drafted to the NHL? Like, isn't there a developmental fee?
There's developmental fee.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is. It could be around like a first rounder was like
Brooks didn't get
$75,000.
anything for Kale McCarr, I read, right? So
So now that's another point to it, right? This is a little bit of a moneymaker if they can have more there's going to be a lot of eyes on it anyway, but now drafting out of this new kind of West Coast league, maybe it provides more money into it and makes it a little bit better.
AJHL, who's canceled some of their game. I think the AJHL is in scramble mode right now, obviously. Get the rug pulled out from under you on 5 teams here. But here's what the AJHL, because people are saying, well, are you going to not allow these players to play anymore because their teams are leaving next year, which would be unfair to the kids. The teams put them in that spot, but they obviously think it'll be beneficial for everybody down the road. Anyway, the AJHL tweeting this out a couple of hours ago. AJHL schedule update. We continue to evaluate the best path forward after reviewing Saturday's BCHL announcement that 5 of our teams have decided in the middle of our current season to leave the AJHL and play unsanctioned hockey beginning in 24-25. We are responding by taking steps to protect the competitive integrity of the AJHL and the CJHL playoff system to ensure the safety of players and officials. Anyway, what's come out of this here is games previously scheduled among the 11 teams who are still in the league will continue as scheduled. And then out of respect for the players on the 5 defecting teams, we will allow scheduled games among those clubs to proceed. So Okotoks will be able to play the Sherwood Park. Sherwood Park can play the Saints. Brooks will be able to play these teams. But they'll kind of be out of the league. They'll just be able to continue to play those games so players can, people can still get eyes on these kids who are playing. So any games involving teams that cross over will be canceled moving forward in the AJHL this season. What do we think on how they handled this?
Terrible.
Yeah?
Yeah. You want to they're not playing for anything. They have an exhibition schedule the rest of it's unfair to the kids. I hate it. I think it's completely stupid. You know what? Things are going to change. Put in
Just
motion.
Suck it up from the AJHL perspective. And
finish the year, and then, you know what? Look at next year and make the adjustments necessary. You're holding a gun to these kids' heads. I heard that and I was really frustrated.
Yeah, I think it's a little disappointing because of that. I mean, I guess there is a part of me with the announcement from the BCJ where I'm like, you should have waited till after the season.
It was weird that it came out this way. I mean, let the teams finish. I don't know. There must have been some reason that they had to have it out by now. Because if not, it doesn't make sense to me that you wouldn't just
wait till
try to
right
keep
after
this. I
the
mean,
season's
it's
over.
already been rumored for a long time anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So people might have known it was coming. Why would you not just wait until the end of the season? I don't know.
That's terrible.
It kind of puts everybody in a bad spot.
Bad
when
time.
this
Now,
announcement
what
came out.
might be potentially is maybe there was a leak that it was official.
Yeah.
Internally, like in the AJHL, where they knew, so the BCJ
So
was like,
whatever,
cats out of
let's
the
just get
bag.
it out here.
Like,
They
let's go.
let it go.
Yeah, I don't know on that, but yeah,
Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see how it sorts itself out. NHL expansion. What do you think, boys? Does the NHL need to expand? I feel like the league's pretty good where it is right now with 32 teams.
Yeah.
Huss had an interesting take on Lockshop. He said he thought the message that came out from this Utah group said we are ready now, and he thinks it's like a play to get the Coyotes
Yeah.
as opposed to expansion, which would be interesting. I don't know if Gary Bettman would allow it.
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, Gage, do you think the NHL needs to expand?
Not right now. I think it's expanding too fast. You need to let things kind of build up. I think it was perfect timing with Vegas, good timing with Seattle, but we remember back at that first expansion, it seemed like a watered down league, and all of a sudden you have an American Hockey League team. I hope they can still have. I'd much rather see the Coyotes move there. I would be fine with that. But as for another team in the league, I don't think the NHL needs. I know they're going to expand it eventually because it's a moneymaker, of course. But I don't like the timing.
So here's my question for you guys, because I think if you do one, you're going to have to do another.
Yeah,
right. And so two. Let's call it. Ultimately, it'll be a 2-team expansion. If now isn't the right time, Gager, when is the right time?
When I'm ready to make a comeback.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I would give it if I was put a time 4 to 5 years, I think.
From now. Well, they'd probably start to announce things then within 18 months to 2 years.
And let's make sure. Like that 5,000 seat arena. Come on. I mean, I want to go watch a game there, obviously, but it's ridiculous that you have an NHL team playing in a local rink. You know, it's such a bad look. It's terrible. So dumb.
It's a horrible look for the league.
It's awful.
Like if the CFL had that happen, people would be like, this league is absolute garbage and should fold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't. I mean, it's a bad look for the National Hockey League. I don't care if it's a fun time if you go there or whatever. Cass, like how big is too big? Like 32 teams seems like a nice league. I mean, 34, maybe that's where we get. But I don't want to see 40 Major League Baseball teams and 40 NBA teams and 40 NFL teams.
No, you have to think it stops at some point. What's going to be interesting to me, to shift a little bit, I mean, same topic, but shift a little bit, is I wonder if this and the Seattle or the Utah group coming out, Salt Lake City, I wonder how or if this puts a fire underneath some other groups that have their eyes on other cities.
To be like, hey, we're over here.
Like a Houston, for example, where it's like they already have the infrastructure in place. You don't have to build a new rink. You have stuff there. You have the population to support it. I think you have the culture to support it as well, as long as you don't play on Sundays. Yeah. At least the home games on Sundays. To where it's like, I think we saw one here, and I would not be shocked if in the next couple months you saw another group come out and say, we're also ready.
Yeah. And then we've got two.
We got two, and then we'll see. So I think, if I put my, how big can you expand cap on it? I don't think you can go beyond 34 teams.
No.
32 seems like a lot already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
34 teams from a playoff standpoint, from a quality of play standpoint, it just seems like that's like full saturation. But it's pretty hard. Like if these groups are putting together $600 or $700 million or however much it ends up being, like
isn't it $1 billion now?
Might even be up to
Well, who was it? Somebody said today that Friedman was saying it would be like $2 billion.
Oh my God!
Like so let's say
$2 billion
if it's
to get
like
the
$2
Hawks
billion,
roster.
Yeah, like are you like?
Yeah.
So are you, as a group of owners, saying here's an influx of $4 billion that you get to split between 32 groups?
Or you're going to need it because no one's going to go watch those games.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. I honestly think, look at, I know Chicago's banged up right now, but I don't know if there's enough NHL caliber hockey players to make it be good hockey if you go 36. Like it's going to water any league, no matter what it is, as you continue to expand, it would water down the process a little bit, right?
You're not necessarily going to have, I think you would see a shift in that we talk about teams that win. And it would make it so much harder for teams to have like that, 1 and 2 forwards, like two elite level forwards, 1 elite level D, and solid goaltending. Like it would probably water it down because it's just like the players just don't exist, right? They just don't at this time.
No, they don't. We talk about the duo and the Norris caliber, the top goaltender. That's tough, man. Yeah, I just think those teams would get eaten up. I think it was just
the
perfect
goaltending thing's a big one. Like we can't even find 32 legitimate starting.
Well, you would swing. You would see in that instance, I think, and you already see it a little bit. Is like you would see a bigger swing between the haves and have-nots, and like rebuilding years would take longer. Like teams that have to go through a rebuild, it would take 3 to 4 years longer to get the rebuild done, just because from a draft quality and the players you're drafting is like, well, you don't have as small of a pool to choose from and less likelihood that these players pan out, and it just is going to take longer. So
This BC league better be good.
You're going to have to churn out 4 teams worth of NHL players.
Or
here
you're just going to have to
over
bring
the
in
next
more
little while.
Russians.
Try to get that opened up again. All right, that is going to do it for two guys and a goalie today. What is the official prediction tonight? I'm on 6-1. I'm on 6-1 for the Oilers.
Oof.
I was going to say 5-1.
Okay, 5-1. That's fair.
Yep.
I'm 4-2.
All right, a little closer.
That doesn't even cover the 2.5
empty
puck
netter or
line.
no?
No, just solid 4-2. They can't score in an empty net. Come on.
There's zero chance the Hawks hold them to 15 shots again, right? Like,
I can't see it. With their roster right now.
I still, part of me doesn't believe that actually happened last time.
Yeah.
Like, my mind's just like, no, it's.
Yeah.
I think the Oilers probably win comfortably at home tonight. So, good discussion. Good having you guys in, Cass. You need to book more coffee meetings.
Yeah.
I'm going to start being a fake client and be like, can I get a coffee meeting at 11:30 on Thursday?
God, it's right next to
Yeah.
the ETS, the studio.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, have you been to the diner over there? What's it called? Rosie's Diner? What's it?
The Robbins?
Yeah, Rockin' Robin.
Rockin' Robbins
No,
Center?
I'm not.
It's great.
Everybody's been telling us it's absolutely amazing.
It's amazing in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Like the food's good or just
Oh
the
yeah,
atmosphere
food's
sweet?
great.
Sweet.
Everything.
I have to check that out. All right, that's going to do it for two guys to go in for Cass and Gage. I am Dustin Nielsen. Pre-game show. Who's on pre-game tonight? Cass is on pre-game. What time's that get going? 5:30? 5:30 pre-game tonight right here with Tommy Gazzola, YouTube Trev, and Matt Kassian as well as the Oilers look to make it 15 in a row. We will talk to you on Tuesday on Two Guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning on The Nielsen Show.